It's an alien spaceship flying toward Earth at 4,000 miles per second, appearing over Moscow. The troops sent multiple fighter jets to intercept and fired 2 missiles. The hull burst into flames instantly, and the externally rotating gears also began to smoke. The alien spacecraft was threatened, and a magnetic field interference was emitted from the side, causing the fighter jet to lose control instantly. Upon seeing this, the driver could only abandon the plane and flee, but the residents below were not so lucky. People gathered together, waiting for this moment to come. At this moment, everyone's mobile phones suddenly failed, and the alien spaceship rushed straight to the buildings. People were stunned for an instant, then run away quickly. When the girl on the roof wanted to run, it was too late. Wherever the alien spacecraft went, there was no grass and dust, and it didn't know how many buildings it knocked down before it stopped. People are panicking. What is the purpose of this alien spaceship coming to Earth? The government intends to negotiate with it. Unexpectedly, before Mike could say a few words, Mike fell to the ground clutching his chest, and the negotiation could only be terminated at this point. Fortunately, the General Tony on the side understood what the alien said, and told the military leader about it. Tony said that the alien spacecraft was hit by a meteor shower outside the atmosphere and was forced to land on the Earth. Get out of here. It is hoped that there will be no conflict between the two sides to avoid further casualties. They didn't know the details of the aliens, so they fenced off the area a few kilometers away from the spacecraft, and the troops were on high alert 24 hours a day. However, the incident of aliens has caused a lot of noise on the internet, and some families of the victims are even more resentful about it. Amelia is no exception. When the incident happened, it was my best friend sitting on the rooftop. Amelia looked at the portrait of her best friend and felt guilty. Amelia decided to kill the aliens to avenge her best friend. Amelia stole her father's pistol and came to a dilapidated warehouse. This is her boyfriend's base. Amelia wants to ask her boyfriend Jack for help, and Amelia immediately pulls out the gun. When Jack's brothers saw Amelia pull out a pistol, they immediately gained momentum, and without saying much, they went straight to the fight. They skimmed past the guards and slipped through the dog holes in the fence. Shuttle through the dilapidated streets. Suddenly, a patrolling armored vehicle appeared. Jack hastened to protect Amelia for fear of being discovered. After the armored vehicle left, several people came to a dilapidated house with flashlights and found a strange thing here. Amelia stood on the dilapidated building, watching the alien spacecraft in the distance. Looking at the dusty photo, Amelia felt very sad. Just at this time, an unknown creature suddenly appeared, and Amelia was so frightened that she picked up the gun and did it. Amelia accidentally fell in a panic. The aliens quickly grabbed Amelia. At this moment, Amelia saw the face of a human. Jack heard the voice and rushed up and beat the alien without saying a word. Soon, they came downstairs, but the alien had only a shell left. Amelia looked around, but Amelia noticed that the male model on the ground winked at Amelia. Amelia pretended not to see and turned her head away. They were carrying their armors and preparing to evacuate, but unexpectedly sirens sounded in the distance. They had no choice but to abandon the piece of black iron and flee. Amelia lay on the bed tossing and turning, driven by curiosity. She returned to the dilapidated house, found the man just now, and checked his wound. He was then wrapped in a plastic bag and loaded into the trunk with a forklift. Amelia came to the school and asked Sandy, who knew medical skills, to help. But when the wound was checked, it was found that the alien was exactly the same as a human being, except that the wound lost too much blood and caused shock. The two secretly took him into the hospital and pushed him into an abandoned operating room. Plug in the instrument and match the man's blood type, which happens to be the same as Amelia's blood type, both of which are type of blood. Sandy was very nervous and gasped, "Good guy." Sandy, who is studying medicine, actually faints, and Amelia can only operate by herself. When everything was done smoothly, they hid the man in their garage. The water around the spaceship on the other side dried up overnight. Authorities found that the spacecraft's structure was repaired, possibly related to water. They let the residents control the water. As long as they can send the alien spacecraft away, they can do anything. The man suddenly woke up, which startled Amelia. He said that his name was George, and he wanted to ask Amelia to help George find the heart of the spaceship so that he could leave the Earth. Amelia looked at the handsome guy in front of her and instantly broke her defenses, forgetting even the revenge of killing her best friend. But at this time, the heart of the spaceship has been brought back to the base by Amelia's father Marcus for research. They didn't dare to force their way in, so they could only resort to tricks and let the guards convey Dot.
Would you please tell him that I'm pregnant?
In order to avoid embarrassment, Marcus asked all his men to go out, stood up and scolded Amelia. Amelia hugged Marcus, took the opportunity to steal his work card, turned around and handed it to George to let him go out first, then told Marcus that she was pregnant just to tease him. Marcus cursed angrily, but Marcus didn't know that George had used his identity to get the heart of the spaceship. This scene stunned the doctor next to him. He hurriedly sounded the army's alarm, and when Marcus saw this, fearing that something might happen to Amelia, he quickly asked his subordinates to drive the two of them out. This is an alien battle armor, which is closely connected with human limbs, and there is no sense of gravity after wearing it. But in the next second, Hobart's expression was painful, and everyone pulled out the alien armor together, and then blasted Hobart out. Jack decided to hand over the armor to Marcus in order to please his future father-in-law. Unexpectedly, the residents rioted and scuffled with the armed police. Jack stepped forward to stop him. The cavalry mistook Jack for a thug and knocked him down with a stick. Amelia's father had gotten angry because of George and thought Jack was looking for trouble here. Marcus scolded Jack again. Jack concealed the matter of the armor, and his eyes were full of hatred, which led to the tragedy that followed. In order not to let George leave any regrets on Earth, Amelia took out 2 concert tickets, intending to take George to dance wildly and let herself go. Unexpectedly, Hobart found out, and Hobart called Jack immediately. The two at the scene had a great time, which made George very happy. With forehead to forehead, George brought Amelia into his head. Amelia was instantly overwhelmed by the sight in front of her. Amelia sent George not far from the spaceship, intending to say goodbye. But at this time, Jack called and told about their previous relationship. Unexpectedly, Jack appeared from behind the room with his men, and the momentum was very fierce. Jack signaled his men to keep Amelia under control, and they kicked George down. Immediately afterwards, Jack clenched his fist and swung at George's stomach, and then Jack strangled George's neck. After Jack put George down, he walked up to Amelia, and Jack's hand hit Amelia on the face. George was furious when he saw this, and George put them all down in an instant. Jack rushed towards George, and George pushed Jack directly to the ground. The subordinate next to him stepped forward to hug George, and the two became entangled. Hobart pulled a gun from his bag. Seeing this, Amelia quickly stopped her, but she was shot in the head. Several people immediately ran over to check. At this time, the patrol car arrived. Jack and the others saw that the situation was not good and ran away decisively. Amelia and George were brought back to the army. Marcus learns that George is an alien. Marcus and Amelia have a big fight. Unexpectedly, Amelia took out her father's gun. Amelia threatened her father with her life, and she would send George out of the Earth. Marcus could only agree. Just as the two were driving towards the spaceship, Jack incited the crowd to riot and broke through the fence, and then Jack got into the armor, ready to retaliate. On the other side, the spacecraft alarm was triggered, and armed armor was sent to stop it. When Amelia was driving to the spaceship, unexpectedly, Jack came out. Jack jumped onto the front of the car and lashed out at the window. Amelia threw Jack off. The car lost control in an instant, and the car rolled a few laps and finally stopped. George glanced at Amelia. George got out of the car angrily and ran towards Jack. George first evaded Jack's attack. George jumped onto Jack's back, but was pulled off by Jack and threw George out. After a few rounds, George was exhausted, and Jack pinched George in his hands and swayed from side to side. Jack lifted George over his head, trying to kill him. Amelia jumped out of the trunk and hugged George tightly. At this moment, Jack pulled half of his body away with all his strength and punched the soldier who stopped him. Then Jack took off the alien armor and lay on the ground. Jack watched where the two kissed. Jack picked up the AK-47 on the ground and fired wildly at the two of them. The two fell to the ground after being hit. Amelia did not die. Amelia was revived by aliens with high technology. George, I don't know?